Hello, everyone. Over the past few months, one topic has repeatedly dominated discussions in the technology world: Huawei versus NVIDIA. Some people claim that Huawei has already surpassed NVIDIA. Others argue that Jensen Huang keeps visiting China because NVIDIA is getting nervous. And some even believe that China is on the verge of overtaking the United States in AI hardware. So, how much of that is actually true? Today, let's put politics aside and focus on technology, business, and strategy, because once you look beyond the headlines, a much more interesting story begins to emerge, and surprisingly, it has very little to do with raw chip performance. Let's start with the obvious question: has Huawei already surpassed NVIDIA? The short answer is no, at least not yet. Many recent headlines cite Huawei's claim that its latest Ascend AI accelerator delivers roughly 2.8 times the performance of NVIDIA's H20. That number may very well be accurate under specific testing conditions, but there is an important detail that often gets overlooked. The H20 is not NVIDIA's flagship product. It is a special export-compliant version designed specifically for the Chinese market. NVIDIA's most powerful AI products are the H100, H200, and the newer Blackwell B200 series. So outperforming the H20 does not automatically mean outperforming NVIDIA's best technology. Those are two very different claims. However, that doesn't mean Huawei's progress is insignificant. Far from it. In fact, Huawei's progress is precisely why the industry is paying so much attention. Because in AI, the most important question is often not who has the fastest chip. Instead, the question is who has a viable alternative. And that's where things become interesting. For large AI systems, performance isn't determined by a single chip. Modern AI models are trained and deployed across hundreds, sometimes thousands, of accelerators working together. If one chip is less powerful, companies can often compensate by deploying more of them. The real challenge isn't achieving the performance. The real challenge is having access to the hardware in the first place. For many Chinese companies, the biggest problem is no longer whether NVIDIA is better. The problem is whether they can buy enough NVIDIA chips at all, and that's exactly where Huawei enters the picture. Huawei provides an alternative, maybe not the best alternative today, maybe not the fastest alternative, but an alternative nonetheless, and in strategic industries, alternatives matter a lot. Now let's talk about what I believe Jensen Huang is actually worried about. Most people assume he is worried about Huawei's chip performance. I don't think that's the main issue. Performance gaps can be closed, engineering problems can be solved. What is much harder to build is an ecosystem, and NVIDIA's greatest strength has never been its hardware alone. For more than a decade, NVIDIA has been building an entire AI platform. Developers write AI software using CUDA. Models are optimized using TensorRT. Large-scale GPU clusters communicate using NCCL, machine learning frameworks, developer tools, deployment systems, and cloud infrastructure have all been built around NVIDIA's ecosystem. Many companies think they're buying NVIDIA GPUs. In reality, they're joining NVIDIA's platform. That's a very different thing. Historically, many companies have attempted to compete with NVIDIA. Some even produced impressive hardware, but most failed. Why? Because building a chip is difficult. Building an ecosystem is much harder. And this is exactly why Huawei deserves serious attention. Huawei isn't just building chips. Huawei is building an alternative AI stack. Where NVIDIA has CUDA, Huawei has CAN. Where NVIDIA has TensorRT, Huawei has MindAI. Where NVIDIA has NCCL, Huawei has HCCL. In other words, Huawei is attempting to create a complete software and hardware ecosystem that can operate independently of NVIDIA. And strategically, that may be more important than any benchmark result, because once developers begin adapting their software to a new ecosystem, momentum starts to build. Companies begin deploying applications, engineers gain experience, universities start teaching the tools, and over time, a new platform emerges. This is precisely why ecosystem competition is so important. History has shown that technology alone does not guarantee victory. Windows didn't dominate solely because it was technically superior. Android didn't become the world's largest mobile operating system solely because it had the best engineering. Platforms win when developers, businesses, and users adopt them at scale, and AI will likely follow the same pattern. Now let's look at the broader geopolitical picture. The United States faces a difficult dilemma. If export restrictions remain in place, Chinese companies are forced to invest more heavily in domestic alternatives. That accelerates the growth of companies like Huawei. But if restrictions are removed entirely, Chinese firms gain access to the world's most advanced AI hardware, potentially accelerating AI development across China. Neither outcome is ideal from Washington's perspective, which is why export controls continue to evolve rather than completely disappear. This isn't simply a technology issue, it's a strategic issue, and strategy often involves choosing between imperfect options. So, where does China actually stand in the global AI race today? My view is relatively straightforward. China is neither as far ahead as its biggest supporters claim, nor as far behind as its critics suggest. The United States remains the global leader in many key areas. The most advanced AI chips are American. The most influential foundation models are American. The most widely used AI applications globally are still American. That's simply the reality today. At the same time, China possesses several unique advantages. First, talent. China produces an enormous number of engineers and technical professionals every year. Second, scale. A population of over 1 billion people generates a tremendous amount of data and market demand. And third, perhaps most importantly, industrial depth. Very few countries possess a complete AI-related industrial ecosystem. The United States does. China largely does as well. From chip design and manufacturing equipment to cloud infrastructure, model development, and consumer applications, China participates in nearly every layer of the AI value chain. That doesn't guarantee success, but it does provide the foundation for long-term competition. And ultimately, long-term competition is what matters, because the future of AI won't be determined by who wins a single benchmark. It won't be determined by one generation of chips. It will be determined by who builds the strongest ecosystem, who attracts the most developers, who creates the most useful applications, and who becomes the platform that everyone else builds upon. So let's return to the original question. What is Jensen Huang really worried about? I don't believe he's worried about Huawei outperforming NVIDIA today, because today NVIDIA still leads. What he may be concerned about is something much bigger, a future where China develops a fully independent AI ecosystem, a future where developers no longer rely exclusively on NVIDIA, a future where a genuine global competitor emerges, because if that happens, the conversation will no longer be about chip performance, it will be about platforms, and platform wars are far more consequential than benchmark wars. Thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed this discussion, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.